Neil Entwistle, the British dad who killed his family and fled. True crime documentary. A quiet beginning in suburbia, Hopkinton, Massachusetts. A peaceful town filled with colonial homes, tree-lined streets, and the kind of calm that makes you think nothing bad could ever happen here. It was January 21st, 2006. The sun barely shone through the clouds that Saturday morning when the lives of a young family quietly and brutally came to an end. Rachel Entwistle, just 27 years old, was found lying face down on her bed. Beside her, cradled in the crook of her arm, was her 9-month-old baby girl, Lillian Rose. Both were dead, both shot at close range. There were no signs of forced entry, no missing valuables, no bloody struggle, just silence and suspicion. The one person who should have been at the center of the chaos was nowhere to be found. Her husband, Neil Entwistle, had vanished from England with dreams of the American life. Neil Entwistle was born in Nottinghamshire, England in 1978. A quiet, intelligent student, he studied engineering and computer science, eventually earning a degree from the University of York. While in college, he met Rachel Souza, a bright American exchange student from Massachusetts. Rachel was vibrant and warm, the kind of person who lit up every room she walked into. Neil was more reserved, calculated, but she loved him. They married in England in 2003 and soon moved to the U.S. to start their new life together. They seemed like a dream couple, beautiful wedding photos, smiling parents, a promising future. Rachel became a school teacher. Neil claimed he was working in tech startups, promising Rachel that his online business ventures would soon bring in big money. But behind the scenes, nothing was adding up. Neil's ventures were failing. He was jobless, and the family's finances were falling apart, but he kept it hidden. By the time their daughter Lillian was born in 2005, Neil was facing the pressure of supporting a family, meeting expectations, and maintaining a lie he could no longer control. The day of the murders, January 20th, 2006. Neil claimed he left the house that morning to run errands and let Rachel and the baby sleep in. When he returned, he told police the house was empty, but the truth, as later discovered, was far darker. That morning, Neil retrieved a .22 caliber handgun from his father-in-law's collection, a weapon he wasn't authorized to access. He walked into the bedroom where Rachel and Lillian lay resting. He pointed the gun at his wife's head and pulled the trigger. Moments later, he turned the weapon on his 9-month-old daughter. No struggle, no screaming neighbors, just 2 soft, fatal shots, and then silence. Instead of calling 911, Neil calmly placed the gun back where he found it, left the house, and began to cover his tracks. He purchased a one-way plane ticket. Within hours, he was on a flight back to England, alone. A missing father, a suspicious silence. When Rachel failed to show up for a planned visit with friends, concern grew quickly. Calls went unanswered. Her mother and stepfather, worried sick, drove to the house. The doors were locked. Everything seemed untouched, too untouched. They called the police. A wellness check revealed a tragic scene. Rachel and baby Lillian, both murdered in the master bedroom, covered with a blanket. There was no sign of Neil. By now, he was thousands of miles away, back in his parents' home in rural England, acting as if nothing had happened. But detectives weren't fooled. Cell phone records, airline bookings, online search histories, all pointed to one horrifying truth. Neil Entwistle had murdered his wife and child and fled the country to avoid justice. The arrest and extradition. British authorities worked closely with the FBI and Massachusetts investigators. Within days, Neil was arrested at his parents' home in Worksop. He maintained his innocence, claiming he found Rachel and Lillian already dead and panicked. But the evidence didn't support his story. The murder weapon was traced back to his father-in-law's gun cabinet. There were no signs of a break-in. His fingerprints were in the house. His timeline didn't hold up. In a rare and highly publicized move, the British courts agreed to extradite Neil to the United States to stand trial. He arrived back in Massachusetts to face murder charges and a nation full of unanswered questions. The trial, love, lies, and cold calculations. The trial began in June 2008 in Middlesex Superior Court. The prosecution laid out a devastatingly simple motive: failure. Neil was a man who couldn't provide for his family. He had no income. His fake business ventures were exposed. And instead of seeking help or coming clean, he chose to destroy everything around him. Witnesses described Neil as distant and cold. Financial records showed credit card debts, bounce checks, and failed online businesses, including one linked to adult content and escort services. Emails showed him searching for ways to disappear, for websites about suicide, and even how to kill without getting caught. The prosecution painted a picture of a man who couldn't bear the shame of being seen as a failure. So he killed the two people who loved him most. Defense claims a desperate story. Neil's defense team argued that he had stumbled upon the bodies and fled in shock. They said he couldn't have murdered his family, that he loved them too much, that maybe, just maybe, Rachel had killed the baby and then herself. But the physical evidence didn't support this. The wounds, the trajectory of the bullets, and the lack of gunshot residue on Rachel's hands ruled out murder-suicide. The jury didn't buy it. After just 13 hours of deliberation, Neil Entwistle was found guilty on all counts. 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of illegal possession of a firearm, 1 count of illegal possession of ammunition. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. A mother's grief and a nation's outrage. Rachel's mother, Priscilla, became the voice of grief. Her daughter had trusted Neil. She had believed in him. And in return, he had betrayed her in the most unimaginable way. In a packed courtroom, Priscilla looked directly at Neil and said, "You took the lives of 2 beautiful people who loved you. May you live every day of your life remembering what you've done." The case shocked both the UK and the US, not just because of brutality, but because of the cold, calculated nature of the crime. This wasn't a man who snapped. This was a man who planned, who executed, and who ran. What turns a father into a killer? Neil Entwistle wasn't a drug addict. He wasn't abusive in the traditional sense. There were no police reports, no screaming matches, no previous signs of violence. But what he did have was a fragile ego and a need to control the narrative. When life didn't go the way he had envisioned, he saw no way out. Divorce? Embarrassment? Admitting failure? That was worse than death for them. Experts say these types of killers, family annihilators, often act not out of rage, but out of perceived humiliation. They'd rather erase their family than face shame. It's twisted, it's cowardly, but it's disturbingly common. Final reflection, a warning in disguise. Rachel and Lillian should have been safe in their own home. They should have had many Christmases, many birthdays, first steps, first days of school. Instead, their lives were ended by the very man who promised to protect them. What can we learn from this? We often imagine danger coming from strangers, but sometimes it comes from the person sleeping next to you. If someone in your life controls the money, hides the truth, isolates you from friends or family, or keeps secrets, don't ignore those signs. Trust your instincts. Ask hard questions. Reach out to someone, because silence can be deadly. If this story moved you, take a moment to honor Rachel and Lillian, not just by remembering their names, but by learning from their tragedy. If you or someone you know feels unsafe at home, contact a local domestic violence hotline. You're not alone. Help is out there. And for those watching, appearances can lie. Listen, speak up, be aware. This has been another episode in our true crime series, revealing the hidden darkness behind seemingly perfect lives. Like, comment, and subscribe for more real stories that must be told. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and remember, love should never hurt.